So something I just wanted to mention. So the blessing of today, I received understanding that it has been a huge eye opener to the fact that I'm getting older, but I noticed that there's a level of peace with getting older and connecting it with your ability to become wiser. And noticing how many years in my 20s I was actually ridden more with anxiety, shame, guilt, feeling of unworthiness. The 20s were not my best years. And I had so much unsureness. I never knew what my gift was. I never knew where my strengths were. I was at the highest level of ignorance. When you're young, ignorance is bliss because the consequences of your ignorance, they kind of get accepted. Right? You can eat whatever you want. There's a level of ignorance in your ability to just be a child. But when you start becoming an actual young adult, your level of ignorance is painful. You seek validation from other people. You constantly try to prove yourself, and you constantly try to fit into the expectations that other people have of you. You are always trying so hard to catch up to this image which you don't even know is your true identity. It's just what you think it's who you are. It's what you think is what you're supposed to do. And as you are constantly being influenced by everybody's beliefs, everybody's perception, society's expectation of the mold which you are meant to fit yourself within, it becomes a tricky journey that for me was filled with more anxiety and actually more timidness and unsureness of who I truly am. I noticed that as I gained more experience, I gained more peace. And the reason why I'm getting more peace is because I know myself much better, and there's less of a need to prove myself to others and seeking that validation and constantly living under that shameful, I would say stronghold, that shame stronghold of not being good enough, that shameful stronghold of I am a disappointment. There's so much that I had to understand was a true limitation in my past. It was the 20s that made me understand my youth is filled with more ignorance, and it's resulting in not having inner peace. But my years of experience brought me wisdom, which allowed me to know how to find more peace. So as a matter of fact, as I celebrate my 30th birthday today, I look back and I'm appreciative that my 20s have brought me to this level of being able to understand where true peace comes from, where true joy comes from, because it's not something that you can actually go out and seek. It's something that you learn how to create. But I did not have the know-how. I did not have the ability to know what ultimately gives me this boldness, this ability to no longer act out of timidness, but rather act out of true self, inner confidence. That took years for me to get here. That's why I appreciate getting older, because you know better, so therefore you do better. And that ultimately changes your entire experience. And that's what I got to appreciate, that I don't become afraid of getting older. I am actually more afraid of living a life with the ignorance I once had, because I remember the quality of the experience as a result of just not knowing better. And the quality of the experience, knowing better, are two very different pictures. And I'll always want the latter. who I am today, the vocal image, the actual character, the charisma, the actual, level of boldness, the level of being able to put myself outside that box, stepping outside my comfort zone, the growth, the personal development, my health, choices. I can tell you so many advancements that I can truly look back and say, that is something I'm truly proud of. But it took me years to get where I am. So the more years I have, the wiser I am. And the wiser I am, the better the choices are. Now, granted, not everybody who's older makes wiser choices. Some people give up on themselves. Sometimes people will find themselves getting to a point where they fail so much, they give up. And they say that I'm not destined for anything greater than this. And that is an actual shame. But I've learned to see the blessing out of every experience. Learned to see the blessing out of every limitation when I felt that I'm supposed to be ashamed. And I realized that no, there's a blessing in this experience which was actually working for me to be able to think differently, for me to be able to actually perceive, to have more resilience, to have more something that this experience was bringing, that it wasn't actually attaching me to have an identity of unworthiness, but rather it was giving me the ability to see that I actually have a persistent character, to see that I actually have a gift which was hidden. As I was aiming for this came out. This was now made aware to my attention. I now have awareness to something I never knew was in me. A discipline I never knew I had. I never knew I could be that disciplined. But when I started a journey of changing my actual health, of changing what I do with my time, I got to realize it only, excuse the wind, but be in this actual presence of appreciating that it can only be experience that gives you enlightenment to produce better experience. You have to have the experience of making your first cake, whether it's burnt or it's flat or it flops. You need the experience so that you gain the actual knowledge. You gain the actual wisdom to know how to make a better one the next time. So therefore, my 20s were a blessing to have wiser choices. It was necessary. It was part of the purpose. So that's why I appreciate the fact that it didn't go out well. Because from how it didn't go out well, I got to be able to recognize from every single experience what actually went down, what I did and what result it produced, what I could actually adjust, and seeing the adjustments and seeing that growth and recognizing that, oh, it requires you to not know better and take action so that you can go and reflect from that experience to understand what to do better and experience a better way of moving forward. So yes, the older you are, the wiser you become. The wiser you become, the more peaceful, and the way that you can control your joy a lot more intentionally. But you have to be intentional with finding the blessing from your experience and not be the kind of person who gives up because your experiences weren't great. So therefore you are destined to a life that isn't meant for greatness. But rather go to those experiences that weren't great, find the blessing and find it within you to see that, okay, this is an opportunity. This is what I can adjust and build upon you a new experience, taking the wisdom from your past to create something new. At the end of the day, we're all growing, but you got to be intentional with it. Be intentional with your growth. Make your previous year be different to your new year. Make sure that you are not the same person, you're not doing the same thing. Let your character be constantly progressing. And then you'll see that years of experience, the older you become, the better you do. The latter years for me are the better years because I see constant progression everywhere the older I become. And that's key. Thank you for listening. Thank you, dear Lord, for the wisdom. Thank you for this beautiful year. Thank you for everything that you've blessed me with. What a golden year it has been. And I get to appreciate the 30 years that you've blessed me with. Thank you, dear Lord. With all that being said, I look forward to many more. This is Bass Ebony Panther. Keep that in mind.